Well, people often ask me, what is symptom-constellations really, and how does it differentiate between a normal family constellation or normal systemic constellation work? And it includes family constellations, but it is more than this. And why is it more than this? Because family constellations deal with transgenerational trauma and trauma healing, but there are problems, there are diseases, and also like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and all those problems can have also an energetic background. It does not have to be always an unresolved trauma in the family of origin, meaning somebody else experiencing a trauma, another family member in a former generation, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. It can be also, and this is the second big field where those energetic sources of trouble can come from, is also personal trauma. Personal trauma, meaning you were the one who experienced the trauma in this life. Childhood or youth or later, whatever it was, sexual abuse or maybe an early separation from the parents, or an accident, or if you had to be in the hospital alone as a baby or a little child for some operation or something like that, or you were just not taken care of properly, then this could also be a personal trauma. And some of those we don't even remember. We protected ourselves so much that our mind is not aware of it anymore. And still, those personal traumas can also cause problems in the present time. And there's a third one, and this one is really interesting because it's not seldom. Like 20 to 30% of people who have that background, 20 to 30% of people who come to me to make a constellation have that background. And this is also a personal trauma, but not in this life, in a former life. And this is really not seldom. And if you search as a family constellator for most of the background in the family of origin, and it's not there because it's there in personal trauma, maybe in this life, in childhood, or maybe in the former life, you will not find the real energetic cause. And there, in every family or family of origin, there is something which could be maybe the cause of that. But if it's not the case, you cannot be helpful just looking at that thing. So I developed a test for that, to find that out. And before I explain that, and you will see that in this workshop several times, but there is basically a fourth realm of energetic causes of troubles, and this is present family. Present family is, of course, also included in family constellations, but sometimes facilitators oversee that, don't react to that. What is present family? So present family is all the people of the family you were founding in this life. So meaning all the love partners, married or not, it does not matter here. All the important love partners of the past, even the ones you were divorced from, or even the ones who are for some reason already dead, and sometimes even future love partners, and all your children, even the dead ones, of course, the aborted or miscarried, sometimes even the children of the future. They have already energy and can create a symptom in you to make you alert that you should do something that they can come. So this is the present family. So there are those four basic backgrounds: family of origin, personal trauma, in this life, childhood or youth or later, personal trauma in a former life, and present family. And I developed a so-called 4-column test to differentiate those backgrounds in a very early stage of my symptom constellations. And what I do, and you will see that in this workshop later on several times. First, of course, I bring the position of the client. And then I bring the symptom, whatever they are, or their issue, whatever it is. It could be a physical pain, it could be a physical disease like cancer, heart attack, or whatever. It could be anything on the soul side, like depression, anxiety, or discontent with life. Or it could be so-called minor problems, but they are big enough if you have them, like problems with relationship, or maybe unfulfilled wish for fish, my God. Unfulfilled wish for relationship, and all those things also, or maybe discontent and problems in the field of your profession. So this is all, whatever you choose from that, you can make symptom constellations on it. So you put the issue there as the symptom. This is always the second position which I choose. And then the third one is already the message of the symptom. All those symptoms, all those problems, whatever comes towards us and we don't like it, they don't come without a reason. They have a reason. And often they want to tell us something. And if the body is involved, you know, the body is our friend. You don't have to fight against it. For cancer, you don't have to fight against it. You listen to it. You ask yourself, why? There is always a why, and there is a reason. Nothing happens without a reason. So they could, all those diseases, problems, symptoms, they carry a message for you. Something which you should know about yourself. Often about broken connections which should be healed, so that you get more complete, more powerful, more bright, to live your life and also do whatever you should do on this world in your lifetime. You can do that if you're brighter, if you're powerful, and if you don't carry all those burdens from the past. And whatever it is, you know, it is the message of a symptom is giving us good information about where to look. So I always bring the message of the symptom. And if there are two symptoms, sometimes like somebody has two issues or two symptoms, I bring two messages. And then if we heard the representatives talking, and now you will hear that, I do that in the constellation here. If we have the information about from those positions, then is the time when I do the 4-column test. Because then the question is, we see what it is. The message points at some point in the constellation, nobody is there right now. So the question is, where does it come from? And so I do this test, and I do it like this. I just choose a location in the outer circle of the constellation, and then I define the position in front of myself as, I always begin with this, as the family of origin. And this is not a person, this is really a pool. Everybody, father, mother, all the ancestors, the family of origin of the client. And then I step into this position, and then I see the reaction. And whether it's a connection, whether there is a connection to the symptom or not. If it's the right side, and this is always true, at least for me, if the right arm goes there, it is father's side. If the left arm goes there, it is the mother's side. And sometimes there are two arms coming. So that means that this special symptom has two backgrounds on both sides of the family. And if if there is a no, and this is a body sensation, you will, if you do this test, you will find that also some sort of no or not being connected. That means this is not coming from the family of origin. That means at this point, you know that. And then you make the next test. So I go to another spot in the outer circle of the constellation and define this one as a personal trauma of the client in this life, childhood or youth or later. And then this is important to be very precise there, which could be connected to the actual problem. So this is always very, very important to be very precise how you name those positions. If you're not so precise, you get information from maybe a wider field, which might confuse yourself. So I always say, which is a personal trauma in this life, which might have a connection to the actual problem. And that's the same thing. Then it is, if I step there, it is a connection or not. So it's not right or left, it's just a connection or not. And this shows very clearly most of the time. But there could be a literal connection and a real strong connection from the family of origin. And then this always means that something happened in the childhood, a sort of trauma, but it is not the real cause of all that. It is already the consequence of an earlier unresolved trauma in the family of origin, for example. But if you do this test often, you see the difference. And then the third thing is I go to the present family. Present family meaning love partners and own children. And then if there were if children died or a miscarriage or aborted, for example, it could be that this comes from there. So I define this as the present family. I step into this position and I see connection or no, not. And then I do always the four possibilities. I go to another position and define that as a former life of the client, which might be connected to the actual problem. And then there is a connection or no connection. I do it always, even if there is a connection already shown in the family of origin, I always do the others. Sometimes seldom, but sometimes there are two strains, two directions, and two backgrounds to one and the same symptom. And if you don't find it there, and this is this already happened also, that none of those four react, then it is most of the time a fifth one, and this is the present situation, for example, in the professional problems. So your professional life needs maybe a decision from you, or needs and growth and development of your personality. And then this could also cause some problems. But at least in my clients, this is most of the people show one of the four earlier realms of important energies coming from there. Well, and then from then on, I go exactly what this test shows. If it's family of origin, of course, and then I ask all those questions. About the mother or the father or whatever happened there. I don't do it in the initial interview in the beginning, because if you do that and then later on you find out it's a former life, you did it in vain. You don't need to know all this to be helpful for this client in this very session. But if it's showing family of origin is the cause of that, then I do then it turns to be a family constellation, and you need to know all those information. So you do an interview about this and go there. Or if it's a former life issue, I work with a constellation. This is a special thing. Maybe we will experience that in this workshop. You never know. Then I will explain that in detail what I do then. It's like detective work, because you don't know anything about it. It's like detective work. So you try, and normally you also can really find the initial trauma, whatever happened then. Okay, so this is, after like half an hour or whatever, how long it takes for you to find the initial cause, the initial trauma, and who is connected to that, then you normally get to a point, you know, like in every family constellation, also in every constellation where you see, okay, now this is everything we have to know. And now knowing it, being conscious about the background is already shifting the energy in the symptoms and the client towards a positive, a healing way. But often, and then what you try with the classical tools, that you try to give back burdened energies towards father, mother, or other members of the family, doing that, you know, those sentences of solution or sentences of healing. And then it could be that it is enough, it is good, and most of the time, like 20%, 90% of my constellations, I don't get to this point. I get only like half of this, or 30% of the possible healing. And then I suggest that we work with shamanic healing powers, especially healing voices. I call that method, which was developed in my work in the last 20 years, healing voices, because the voices are a big part of that. And this is a special thing because it is another level. It is just not the same thing. In constellation work, you are getting contact, get access to the informational field. All those informations are in the air everywhere about our human relationships and former events. It's like nowadays, you know, people can understand that. It's like a special Wi-Fi field. And the constellation work, you have the representatives as receivers, as radio receivers for those informations. And this is the normal work you do in constellation work. And this is, you get knowledge about your connections, you get knowledge about the background. Your consciousness is being enhanced and increased about all this. And then in healing voices, when you work with the shamanic healing powers of healing voices, you access another field. And this is not the informational field. This is, I call it the healing field. It's a field of pure healing energy, shamanic healing energy. And those energies are everywhere, as this, you know, as the informational field is. It's also in the back of the moon, I'm sure. It's just everywhere, without time, without location. It's everywhere. And the powers of healing voices are everywhere too. Also, you could say in a special, you know, Wi-Fi field, but it's not information. It is pure healing power. But for some reason, those healing powers cannot get access to the field, cannot really be effective. As you can say, well, you know, normally, you know, you have all the informations about the family and yourself and all those backgrounds in the informational field, in the knowing field, but you don't know it because you need a channel. You need those representatives. You need the constellation for that, to get access to that. And it's similar there. Those healing powers, they need two things. They need the yes, the agreement of the client, and say, yes, let's do it. I open up for this. I say, have a yes for that. This is important. Otherwise, you cannot and should not, and you must not do that. But if there's a full yes on the client, you can do that. If you are entitled, if you feel free, if you feel able and willing to do that. So those healing powers, they need a human being who is willing and able to be a channel, to be a medium for them. And I just grew into that over the last few decades, really. So I didn't choose that, it chose me for that. And in the beginning, I was not, even that I could do it, I didn't want to do it. It was too big, too great for me. And I didn't consider myself a shaman. But then after the course of many years, I learned also through a deep, long-term disease of my own that I maybe have not really the right to hold that back. And then I decided to do it. And then it took another few years. Then I tried to combine it with constellation work. And it's not that I do this in every constellation, but I estimate like 90%. And I do it in the last phase of the constellation, where I cannot get any sufficient healing effect from the classical tools of constellation. The situation, a typical situation is victim-perpetrator fields, like mass murder in Second World War, Holocaust, or something like that. So there is somebody in the family is involved as a perpetrator or a victim in those in murders and war crime. And then you have, and I'm sure you, if you do constellation work, you had many situations of like that. And then you have the victims on the floor suffering, dead, or maybe still fighting, being in big trauma, fighting death. And those souls are trapped in this, in the violent death situation. And we know that from modern trauma therapy that this is possible, that a soul can freeze in an overwhelming situation. And if that happens, those souls, it is like a protection thing, and the animals have that too. So it just happens in very quick, and then you don't feel anything, but only the things you feel right now, and all the perception, all the channels are then closed on the physical level, so you don't even feel pain, which will come in a minute or in 10 minutes. You don't feel the ache and the pain of the soul if more is coming, but you feel what you just experience. And then those souls, they still are, for example, in a torture situation, or in a violent death situation, and they don't experience their death. They are just trapped in this very horrific situation. And if that happens, and this happens very often, then time is not important. Time plays no role. So these souls can stay there 50 years or 500 years or 3,000 years. It does not matter. It is just time stops. And until something happens energetically to help them out of that. But if it's not happening, they still are there. And we call this then unresolved trauma, because for those souls, it's never ending, repeating, always ongoing trauma and pain. And in their energy field, those souls have energy fields. Those feelings are there all the time. And then those feelings go into their families, because their energy field is connected to the energy field of their families, of the victim families. And then descendants of them, they have the same feelings and they don't know where it's coming from. Or the feelings of those trapped souls of the victims, they go towards the energy field of the perpetrators, what they always do. And then it stays in the energy field of the perpetrator as well, and from there it can be passed on to later generations in the in the families of the perpetrators. And then if you see that in a constellation, so you have the souls of the victims on the floor still suffering. And then you have the perpetrators there, and the same thing happens with them. They are trapped in this one. So they are still like doing this. They are like, they hold the aggressive energy, and they still do that. And if this is, if this is somebody part of the family, like the grandfather, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, this is also could be in your family, in your energy field also. And then we tried in the classical family constellation, then we tried to somehow see that and to be conscious about it, and this helps. And then we maybe try to give that back to the father or the mother through which line it goes, and some of that works, but sometimes it does not work all the way, through this methods. Then, this is a typical situation where I would suggest to work with healing voices, the shamanic work. And what they do, and this is not, we as human beings cannot do that. So I am not doing that. But they, for some reason, this is my experience, they can do the following thing. They can fight the negative energy in the perpetrators. They can destroy this energy or push it back. This what in these situations they always do that at first. And this is very aggressive. The healing voices, those healers who work with there and through me as a medium, they are really aggressive against the negative energy over there. And I really have to prepare all clients for that. So, and they are on the safe side. I know that they are safe, so I'm telling them they are safe, and they are during I do this. And then the next thing, and this is the most important thing, and then if the perpetrator energy is gone, they care about the victims. And what they do, they go to the victims often, and then they grieve about the victims. They cry about the victims, and through their grieving, the grief in the souls of the relatives is also coming into flow. So they are grieving after they did maybe block the grief for decades. They grieve, and then those healing voices, they bring the souls of the victims out of the state, of the frozen state of the trauma, and connect them with life, the universe again. And so the participants, the representatives of those victims, then often stand really upright, open to the sky, and very happy, without any regrets, without any aggression, without any revenge feeling. This is one reaction I see there. And the next one is, and the second one is, and others, victims of the same constellation might show this. They come up, stand there, also free out of the trauma, and then they connect on eye level with all the other victims. Like in Holocaust, there are many other victims at the same time coming up, and they reconnect and form a community again. And if you see that then as the grandson or the granddaughter of the victim or the perpetrator, you are much more able to let all those burdened energies go, because there is no really reason to carry on with that if the levels and the souls of the ancestors are healed. And this is the amazing and astonishing effect of healing voices in those fields. And there are other fields. It doesn't have to be always perpetrator victim feels. It could be that another typical situation is that a family lost very many children in childhood. Now, this was the case in many families. Like 100 years ago, it could be that they had 10 children and 5 of them died, or even more of them died in early childhood or shortly after birth, or within the age of 1 or 2. And if you imagine that, then after a while, in the second or third or fourth death of a child, it is just too much overwhelming for the mother and the father to really take that grief, that amount of grief. And what happened then, often that they close their heart. They say, I cannot take anymore. And this is also like a trauma reaction. And then what happens, the grief is blocked, the love behind is blocked, and the connection is cut. So those children and the representatives of those children often mirror that. They are just crying alone, very alone, and the mother and the father are just don't have any feelings whatsoever, and also the partnership, of course, is gone. And this in nowadays we have to go sometimes back to the great grandmothers or great grandfathers who experienced something like that. And if you see that, it is good, and it already changes something to know it, to see it in the constellation. But even if you try to give it back with words, I leave it with you, dear great grandmother. It's still heavy. It's still heavy. They are still their souls are still blocked, and the souls of the children of this family in this generation are still separated. So, and then I bring also healing voices and suggest healing voices, and they do the same thing. They open up the perception of those souls. They bring them into feeling the grief, and the grief, if it flows, it connects. And then they have their children there, and there is also joy and love can also flow. And if you see that as a descendant, it opens up your heart, and it opens up many possibilities in your life. And you feel that all over in your energy field. If this happens, and this is not an imagination, it is an energetic reality. If you see that, it really happens. And I know that from representing the healing voices, that it really happens. And the representatives mirror that all the time.